Patriots, the fight for truth doesn't stop at the screen. It's hitting the road again. Badlands Media is rolling into Nashville on April 9th through 12th for the next stop on the Great American Restoration Tour. Join your favorite Badlands hosts and like-minded Americans for 3 powerful days. Packed with unfiltered discussions, deep dive panels, and real debate. Hear the raw truth, ask the tough questions. No topic too hot, no question too bold. GART is where our community comes alive. Tickets are on sale now at badlandsmedia.tv/GART, where you can also grab a virtual pass and watch from home. Join us to question narratives and fight for America's future. Nashville is calling. The restoration continues. Get your passes today. See you in Music City.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to The Choice. We start season 3 today, season 3, episode 1. It's going to be exciting, and everyone should come to GART. Hi, Ghost.
For sure. Yeah. Hello. How are you?
I'm good. I went on the radio again last night and talked about stolen elections, and I went way harder. And then every time I do that, and then I leave, I'm like, oh, GTTF going to come to my house again. Bracing for it. I don't know. We'll see. So it's not. I don't ever have that thought doing like national media or doing media in a different state. It's just the Colorado. It's like the Colorado authorities really don't like it when you talk about the fake elections.
Yeah. Well, and if you can indulge me for a second, we don't do like news on this show because this is that's not what this show is. But I think given what you just said and the stuff that you and I have been talking about lately with like censorship and all that, this is relevant because it's Israel, and that's a big part of what our discussions on this series has been. Especially with the Tuckabee shows that we did. RT has this guy, Ali Rita, or not Ali Rita. This is Steve. I think this is Steve Sweeney. Yeah, he's a British journalist who works for them. RT has like a ton of English speaking, like American, British, Australian guys working for them. And this is while live, and RT has confirmed this, while live streaming was hit by a missile in southern Lebanon. He's alive, but he's like wounded, seriously injured. But I think it's just worth just seeing because like you got to see it to believe it.
Aitor al-Shab. Further rocket attacks were reported against Nahariya and admitted.
Oh my goodness.
I think like RT and all of his friends have confirmed that this is real and that he's in the hospital and he's hit. He has.
Is he going to be?
Yeah. He's. They say he's going to survive. They say that he's alive and he's going to survive. But clearly he's he's being targeted. Reporting in southern Lebanon, where there is an active war zone and there is an effort by, according to all the leaders in Israel, not just Netanyahu but his opposition. They want to take everything south of the Litani River and annex it. So
didn't Mike Huckabee say that was a conspiracy theory that they wanted to attack Lebanon?
Yes, but he also said that it would be blessed by God according to the scriptures. So if they did.
Yikes.
Yeah. So anyway, but we're not here to talk about news. I just thought that it was relevant.
Thanks for letting me know that. I had no idea.
I didn't either. I literally just saw it when I went to X to earlier to log in and start my morning. And I really spent most of the morning preparing for the show and doing other things. But I just saw that and I went and looked into it and I was like, okay, this looks like this is actually a thing. And it's not like he's like a Muslim or like an Arab or like a secret Muslim Brotherhood guy.
He's kind of British. Is he British?
Yeah, he's British. Yeah. So.
And he's an RT reporter or a different kind of reporter?
No, he works for RT. He's an RT journalist.
My goodness. Oh, well, prayers up that he's okay. That's horrible. That's. Yeah. All right. Wars and rumors of wars. Before we get into the show, we're going to hear from a couple of our sponsors. Please hit the like button and know that if you are watching us on YouTube, hi, we love you. Welcome. Super glad you're here. As soon as we start playing clips, though, we're going to detach from YouTube. So you're going to want to come over to Rumble or X to watch when that comes. But it'll be a little while before that happens. And we will let you know before it happens. First up, let's talk about honey. Welcome to Benson Honey Farms, where every jar is pure gold. Benson Honey is excited to be back on Badlands Media with their latest 2025 honey harvest straight from their farm in Nebraska. While they've been busy working to improve state politics from the ground up, they never forgot the importance of sharing the best honey around. Did you know honey isn't just a sweet treat? It's nature's medicine, perfect for alleviating allergies, soothing upset stomachs, or as a delicious natural sweetener for baking. Benson's honey is never heated, ensuring you receive it in its pure, raw form, full of natural goodness. At Benson Honey Farms, quality and purity is top priority, and they're committed to providing the finest honey from hive to home. Join the supportive community and enjoy a special offer. Visit badlandsmedia.tv/honey and use promo code Badlands for 15% off your purchase. Benson Honey Farms, savor the authentic taste of Nebraska and support this America First business. Follow on Facebook at Benson Honey Farms.
Shout out to Benson. We love Benson. So
amazing stuff. They have really good barbecue sauce, really good honey candy, all manner of cool merch and whatnot. But the real star of the show is the raw, never heated, never pasteurized honey that they have. They're amazing. So make sure that you check out Benson Honey Farms, badlandsmedia.tv/honey. And then let's talk about gold. It's officially a new era for gold and silver. Gold has broken $5,000 an ounce, and silver has surged past 100. In 2025 alone, gold jumped 64%, while silver skyrocketed 150%. And with political and economic uncertainty ahead, 2026 could bring even bigger moves. As after such a historic run, a pullback is normal. Metals move fast, so some consolidation is expected, but top analysts are calling for even higher prices. We've seen the first bank failure of 2026 with regulators shutting down Metropolitan Capital Bank and Trust in Chicago. Could more follow? It's no surprise Americans are pulling money from banks and turning to the proven protection of gold and silver. Big news, Goldco is celebrating America's 250th anniversary with a limited time bonus. Get up to 10% free gold or silver plus free storage and a free home safe with qualifying cash purchase. This offer won't last, so act now. Are we seeing the early signs of another 2008 style crisis? Don't wait for the next shoe to drop. Protect your wealth with precious metals because in uncertain times, gold and silver shine the brightest. Visit badlandsgold.com today for your free 2026 gold and silver kit and bonus buy. badlandsgold.com. All righty. So, season 3, episode 1, Homecoming, it is called. And I just realized that I don't have my show plan pulled up. So hold thing, but the show opens with Matthew years earlier. I think it said 24 or 26 in the
26 AD.
Yeah, 26. So he is dealing with his parents and their debts to Rome, and his father says, "We're sitting Shiva because I don't have a son." And this is something that really happens in Jewish communities. In particular, I've seen this in the church that I was growing up in. There was a Jewish man whose family had a funeral for him because he accepted Jesus and was following Jesus.
Oh, wow.
This is a bit different in this scene. They're doing it because he turned them over to the authorities.
Yeah, exactly. And just I think the general betrayal of what, as they view it, the general betrayal of their community. A few things that I noticed from here. You get your first glimpse, or maybe your only glimpse at like what a tax collector really is. It's not just the guy who sits in the booth and like you go and you pay him money every so often. He goes door to door with the Romans and is like, this guy owes money. He hasn't paid. Arrest him. Like that's why the tax collectors are hated so much. That's why Matthew, there's so much animus from Simon, from Peter toward Matthew, is because of this. Clearly Gaius is not there. So this is, I want to say this is like, is this 5 years before the first, like the events of the first episode?
33, I think, is the year he started his ministry, if I'm not mistaken.
Isn't 33?
I think it's also debated, isn't it?
Isn't 33 when I thought 33 was when he was when
30
he was
to 33 then maybe.
Yeah, because I want to say his ministry lasted for like 2 or 3 years, but anyway, doesn't matter. Well, it does matter, but for this discussion, whatever. This is 5 years
Public
earlier.
ministry was 27 to 29, crucifixion 30 to 33. The times are actually debated.
Okay. So this is sometime before.
Yeah, years before.
But it's obviously before he meets Gaius, because Gaius isn't there. Gaius has not been assigned to be his guard yet, and you see like what the normal dynamic is between a Roman soldier and a Jewish tax collector. Like you see that. You see the dynamic between the Jewish tax collector and the average Jewish citizen, and then obviously Matthew makes an excuse and gets his father out of getting arrested. His father was getting detained and arrested, and then Matthew's like, no, actually I made a mistake. And then him and his father have that exchange where he's like, pay your taxes, father, and his dad's like, F you. Which, as an American, especially in this day and age, I can certainly I think many of us can certainly relate to that sentiment when it comes to speaking like a tax collector, like face to face.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it does really bring to life why he's despised and hated, right? To turn over your own family. He did this. We already know that he does this, right? Because he did it with Simon and Andrew, but his parents, like that's cold, right?
And so then we get kind of like a snap back, like it snaps back to the current moment. But we
have bookends in this episode. The opening scene and the closing scene are Matthew and his father. The difference in the middle is Jesus. In the opening scene, he's saying, point. I have no son. And at the end, he calls him son. That gave me chills. That gave me chills for sure.
Yeah. And what was I going to say? This episode in general, you and I were talking about this before we went live, but this episode in general is like reminds me the most of Game of Thrones. And I know I've said that before, but because as you said, it's all over the place. There's like so many, like it cuts around to so many different points of view, kind of like Game of Thrones would do in the thick of it, where there's so many, like if you just turned it on like in the middle of one of the random seasons, you'd be like, why are there so many people on screen and who are all these people, right? It's like it's jarring how much it jumps around, but again, as you and I discussed, it's setting up all the plot lines that are going to move forward, and we meet a few new characters. We'll talk about them. But yeah, the bookend is a great way to start and a great observation, because then it snaps us back to the Sermon on the Mount, right? It snaps us back to like the moment, and the reason that Matthew's reflecting on that memory is because of what Jesus is saying. And like upon rewatching this, because I haven't seen this episode, I guess probably in years, I forgot that there really isn't actually that much of the sermon shown, right? Yeah. Like they really only show a little bit of it, a few key parts, and I think the parts that they pick are really interesting, like the exact scripture that they select for him to recite on camera is interesting. Obviously, it all speaks to the different disciples, because it pans around, or it cuts back. I loved
how they did that.
Yeah, it cuts around to all of them. Like all of it, I think, is very relatable. I mean, the whole sermon, of course, is relatable, but yeah, I mean that obviously brings Matthew to tears. He makes the comment about he's like, I mean, I transcribed this thing, so it's exactly like as I transcribe it. Hearing him say it is far more powerful than just like reading it or transcribing it. And the thing that I thought was really interesting, the decision by the showrunners to feature the part about like the anxiety, like they cut about that, but being like, don't be anxious about your life. Don't be anxious about like money or like the clothes you wear or like what will happen to you, or like, will you be comfortable? Will you achieve all your hopes and dreams, like all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, that is such a powerful lesson that I think is almost you never hear that. That's one that kind of falls to the wayside when people talk about the teachings in here, because there's so many others that are, take precedence. But that is such like an important, I think, lesson. Like, we should kind of almost like recite that every morning when we wake up. I feel like the world would be a better place if everyone kind of like heard that spoken like every single morning, because people, I feel like, are driven by that. And it really does push people to do kind of the terrible things that we do as humans.
Yeah. So great point about how little of the sermon is actually in the show, because we watched multiple episodes preparing for the sermon, right? They're preparing for the sermon for like the whole half of the second season, second half of the second season. And then we get a scene where it's, maybe 5-6 verses that come into focus. But the way that they're doing this, using the Sermon on the Mount, is to show what I would describe as like struggle and confusion on the faces of the disciples. And I was watching, especially when Simon the Zealot is listening, and on his face, and I wrote down in my notes, he's like, can this really be the plan? And it's just so much. There's so much in this that I think is relevant, and particularly like, I mean, I've encouraged this through my own activities on Twitter, right? But my whole algorithm right now is people arguing about Israel and arguing about what the Bible really means when it comes to the current geopolitical landscape with Israel, and it's maddening.
Yes, it is. As someone who has covered that for years, it's like I really do think it's maddening as well.
Yeah, but I think I also think it sort of has to happen, because we've been in this suspended animation kind of thing on this issue for a long time, and we're getting to the point where the gospel is considered anti-Semitic. And that, to me, you and I talk about this offline, right? And like, I feel like we need to say the gospel louder because of that. I mean, that's a line that absolutely not. I absolutely not should we censor talking about Jesus and who he is, why he came and how he came and what he came for, and what that gift is. There's a lot of people that want that want to make that conversation about something else. I don't want to participate in either side of Lucifer's binary about whether we're worshiping Israel or condemning Israel, because that's what it all is. It's my whole algorithm. It's like, just have to turn it off and get off X, which is a blessing. It is a blessing to get off social media. I was talking to Chris Paul about that the other day. I'm like, how has your life changed since you left social media? He's like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And, it doesn't really impact his ability to stay informed with what's going on in the world, right? It's just that he's missing. So
yeah. And it's funny because Chris and I will talk pretty often and share things with one another. And it's so true. Like, he really does. Whenever I like talk to him, he seems to have his pulse, not on like necessarily the details of what the reportings are, because I don't think he was ever interested in that.
Yeah.
But he's able to like analyze things, I think, just as well as he ever was. And I definitely appreciate his point of view and his perspective. And he always keeps my feet on the ground, because otherwise I'd float off in the clouds. And
same.
He's always ahead of the curve when it comes to like the thinking of this stuff, right? It's like he's seen sometimes years, and I think that is a little maddening for him, and I don't blame him. So
and everybody should watch his he just did last week a kind of special on his Substack, 3 hours on reality construction, and it's very dense. I'm gonna probably watch it again because I think there's a lot of great stuff in there that I missed the first time, but everybody should check that out. It was very cool. All right, so the disciples are watching again. The Sermon on the Mount is Matthew 5-7, so if you haven't read it, you should read it. It is Matthew 6 is what, we're talking about anxiety. Matthew 6 is like don't be anxious about your life. What are you going to eat and where, and all of those things. And that is a passage of scripture that has come up for me in, so many different seasons, but it's like one of those things where God just hits you over the head with it when you're being like spinning out in anxiety. So it's good to have, good to read, good to store it up in your heart so that you have it when you are anxious, because we all get anxious, right? In this, he's talking about, those who murder will be condemned. But if you have a grudge against your brother, then, you're also going to be condemned. And this, I think, gets to the degrees of sin, and particularly how the Pharisees were using the law as a cudgel, as we talk about, right? It's, this sin, and there's other religious institutions that do that as well, right? You do confession, and then you get a whole bunch of works to do, different Hail Marys, whatever, to do to make it right. And there's this like power dynamic thing happening there. Jesus, as we've talked about repeatedly, equalizes all of that. There is no one good, not one. And I think this is probably a good time to talk about the Badlands boosts that we got, which kind of gets into that point. We're going to talk about John the Baptist. And so I think we do this, and then we can jump to John the Baptist if you're cool with it.
Yeah, sure. Well, yes.
All right. So glory to God. First of all, thank you so much for your generous rants and for your insight. We really do appreciate it. We're going to read all of them. It's a one that says, get ready for multiple boosts. I really love that you are doing this podcast and giving God the glory. My heart is troubled by one thing, you thinking that John the Baptist was concerned for making a name for himself. I ask you to please reread all of the Gospel's words about John the Baptist. He was ordained by God even before he was conceived to lead the way for Jesus. He was obedient and humble. When the priests and Levites asked him if he was the Christ, he told them he was not, and that he was not even worthy to unlatch his shoes. He did not even feel worthy enough to baptize Jesus. I think that The Chosen has greatly erred in this depiction of John the Baptist because John was obediently fulfilling his purpose on earth. He wasn't running around trying to amass and impress followers. He was pointing the way to Jesus. He was not sent to be in Jesus's physical presence, i.e., a disciple. He was sent to point others to the Messiah. The depiction of him boastfully saying in his own words, some say that I am the Messiah, is incorrect. That is true. And I think we said that at the time. If we didn't, should have. But yeah, that's 100% true. The Bible records other people wondering this and John explicitly denying it. That's true. This is just from my heart, and I don't want to come across as judgmental or unkind. It has just been troubling me. I feel like the show's depiction of him seems to have led you into confusion about John and his role in bringing people to Christ. So I felt led to reach out to you regarding this. I really appreciate how you guys always endeavor to give the glory to God, Ashe, and I pray that God will bless you both and bless your podcast. So thank you so much. We definitely appreciate the insight and the feedback and the rants. Am I frozen?
No.
Frozen?
No.
Was
You're
I
not well, sometimes when you and I do shows together, your video will freeze, but your audio never does. So yeah.
So yes, I agree with you that is a fabrication. I think they've fabricated a lot of stuff about John the Baptist, and it's the one thing that I've said that bothers me is that they changed his story in allowing him to see miracles. That changes the history of it. But I will say this, I had always kind of read John the Baptist the way that Glory to God describes in those rants, or in those boosts, that he was this kind of perfect example before Jesus. But I'm reminded through this that there is no one good, not one. And that he was a sinner just like you and me, right? He was ordained by God. Absolutely. So were the apostles, right? Yeah. However, he was not God. And he does later when send people ahead. We'll talk about that when we get there in the series. I think it might be in the next season. Send people ahead to say, are you the one we're waiting for? Or are we waiting for someone else? And so I agree with you that the show has taken way too many liberties with John the Baptist and has, changed his story in certain ways. But I think we have to be careful to not put him on the same level as Jesus. And that was the thing that it occurred to me, and it's scriptural. He was not one of the disciples, and he was off in Herod's court, right? And taking on Herod. These are all biblical things that I hadn't framed in, I think, hadn't considered the framing that maybe there was some sort of error on his part in how he approached it once Jesus came. I don't know that we know. I don't know that we can say, but I think it's an interesting question. And I think the net effect of it to say that, you know, he was not God. He was ordained since before he was born. He leapt in his mother's womb when Jesus in his mother's womb came near him, right? There is definitely a preordained kind of aspect to this, but he was not God. And he was not sinless, because there is no one good, not one, except Jesus. Jesus is the only man that ever lived a sinless life. And so that, you know, I think you could potentially see it, right? The hubris and whatnot. I don't think that there's biblical evidence for it. And I don't think, I do think the showrunners have taken, I think of all the characters, they've taken probably the most liberties with John the Baptist. And Babbage says left ambiguous. Yeah. So I you know, I think that we definitely appreciate your feedback and for giving us the opportunity to, you know, share your feedback and also kind of clarify where our thinking is on it.
I mean, and what I would say is that, like I've said before, John the Baptist in this show might be my favorite character. Like I've always said that. I think that the way that they decided to write his character, the way they decided to present it, the dialogue they give him, the presentation they give of him, the flippantness, you know, kind of like he is like the G Money of the group, right? Like he is like the one who is telling everyone to, you know, triggering everyone basically, right? Like that's his whole mantra. He also has like the Alex Jones raving kind of like lunatic, which again, I think is a clever presentation. So I appreciate his character probably as much as anybody in this entire series. I think that based on what you said, I thought that the way you originally broached that, because I hadn't really thought of it that way. But then once you started saying that, it like made me start thinking about things. And then we had this really great conversation. What I think is great about the way that they did that is that they did trigger that thought in your head. And I feel like you've studied this, I mean, far more so than I have. And you never thought about that. You're like, now that I think about it, like pushing aside the show and just looking at the scripture, you're like, yeah, John was doing this. He was like running off and engaging in the political stuff. That is interesting to consider. And like I said, when we did that episode, that moment is so well written. I mean, because the alternative is like not flushing out a character and not like, you know, then the character becomes less like more one-dimensional, less interesting. Like in that moment, as I said when we did the episode, you really see the duality of it, the duality between the Christ and this very imperfect human who just happens to be related to him, who is probably the most qualified of all of his followers and the most well-trained and the best of us in terms of like his followers, right? And even he falls short because he has these moments of humanity, and all Jesus can do in those moments is look at him and like put his arm around him and be like, I get it, man. You're human. Like, it's okay. I still love you, you know? And it's like, I thought that was so clever and it was so well done. And the fact that Jesus responds to it in the, you know, in the context of the show, because this is all historical fiction now that we're talking about, is not to rebuke him and not to get upset, is just to kind of be like, I understand you. Like, I know you better as well as anyone. And I get it. Like, yeah, that's just you.
And to make you think, right? I mean, I think that's what the show does really well, is kind of make your tickle your brain to think about what it was really like, and kind of, you know, the life and ministry of Jesus Christ as documented in the Gospels is the best example that we have of how we're supposed to live and what followers of Jesus are supposed to look like. That's it's the best that we have. And I think to bring it back around to what we were just talking about with the Sermon on the Mount and kind of can this really be the plan? I think there is biblical evidence for John, you know, kind of thinking that when he sends people, are you the one? Are you the one? But that's the core of a lot of their struggles, right? Is thinking they were going to get their warrior king. They were going to get the guy to come that overthrows Rome and releases their oppression and allows them to be the priesthood. And all of the things, right? And Nicodemus talked about that, right? Our people aren't suffering from snake bites, and Jesus is like
suffering from Rome.
They're suffering. They're suffering from sin. You know, your oppression and taxation in the world. You're going to have struggles, but the Jesus didn't come to alleviate all the struggles. of the world and make everybody feel really good and happy all the time, right? He came to liberate you from your sin so you can be reconciled to God. And that's much more important, a much greater gift. But they couldn't see it. And the evidence that certainly the religious leaders of the day couldn't see it. That evidence is throughout the Bible, but even his own followers kind of had, this sort of chaotic feeling about what the plan is. And then after Jesus's death, his followers also had a lot of frustration. I'm going to read something really quickly. I came across this morning, and it just feels so relevant to right now. It's got one of my favorite verses in it. 1 Corinthians 1:19 is, I think, just cling to it at times. Is Twitter down?
Let me see.
Oh no, it came up. It just took a while.
No.
Okay, so this is Paul talking to the church at Corinth, and it's taking a really long time to load. Close some of these tabs.
I saw that it was down like at some point, maybe yesterday or the day before, so I think it has been down this week. So,
okay, quote. For Christ did not send me to baptize, but to preach the gospel, not with words of wisdom, lest the cross of Christ be emptied of its power. I'll read that again. To preach the gospel, not with words of wisdom, lest the cross of Christ be emptied of its power. For the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise, the intelligence of the intelligent I will frustrate. Where is the wise man? Where is the scribe? Where is the philosopher of this age? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of the world? For since in the wisdom of God, the world through its wisdom did not know him, God was pleased through the foolishness of what was preached to save those who believe. Jews demand signs and Greeks search for wisdom, but we preach Christ crucified, a stumbling block to Jews and foolishness to Gentiles, but to those who are called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God. For the foolishness of God is wiser than man's wisdom, and the weakness of God is stronger than man's strength. And that's 1 Corinthians 17-25. And in the, I think it's in the same chapter, he's talking about how, like, you guys, some of you are saying I follow Paul, and some of you are saying I follow, Peter, and some of you are saying I follow this guy. It's like we're all eyes on Jesus, guys. Like, don't miss it.
Yeah. And I think that brings the conversation back to what the entire theme of the second season, in my opinion, was. And maybe it's the theme of the whole series to some extent, or at least one of the sub themes of humility, right, and hubris and death, ego death. Because we're definitely going to talk about that with Judas. But humility is just such an important thing, and we saw that throughout the second season of, like, the death of your ego, humility, and when that doesn't happen, the consequences and the struggles with persevering through those moments. The dark night of the soul, as Joseph Campbell, I believe, called it. And to presume that I think John would handle every moment, because both John and Jesus became celebrity figures, for lack of a better word, right? They both became widely known. To think that John would handle that attention the same way Jesus would, the exact same way Jesus would, I think is very presumptuous. And like you said, it puts him on the same pedestal, the same level as Jesus. And that would just be completely inappropriate to presume that. I think that he probably handled it better than others would have, right? But to think that he would handle it perfectly, I think is again stealing God's glory and giving it to somebody else. So that's why I think I don't have a problem with the way the show did it, because I think it's interesting, it's dynamic, it presents a new dimension to the character, and then it provokes these kind of conversations where we can have like a deeper discussion, and then relate to it. And again, like, I look around, like you talk about logging into X and social media and how insufferable it all is. I think what makes it insufferable is the lack of humility, the lack of like everything is driven by ego right now, and people not wanting to be wrong and people wanting to be right. And it's like, if all of you just stepped back and didn't care about your ego and were just trying to understand the situation, I think things would be way smoother right now in terms of just the public discourse, but everyone's worried about being proven wrong. And so they're like fervently, like frothing at the mouth, defending their position, whichever position that is. And that's kind of what is making it all so insufferable. But to your point, I think this is necessary. I think ego death is important. And maybe, you know, we talk about the egos of our television characters. Maybe we as a movement have ego. Like maybe we as a populace have an ego that we need to kill off so that we can be reborn, so to speak, and move forward like in a different direction, like, you know, as a group.
Yeah, I think it was Kara in the chat last week who said she's trying to make What Would Jesus Do great again, right? Like that whole season. And that
which is first principles, in my opinion. I think that is first principles, even more so than like the Bill of Rights or anything like that. I think What Would Jesus Do is the essence of when people are like, what does first principles mean? Well, what would Jesus do? In my opinion, that is what first principles are, is what would Jesus do? And if you can stick to those as much as possible, I think you're going to come out on the right side of things more often than not. Actually, every time, in my opinion. But
yeah, agreed. And speaking of first principles, that it was proposed in the GART Telegram chat as a kind of first principles 101. I'm summarizing the idea, but as a panel for GART, we have our GART live stream this afternoon, 2 p.m. Eastern time. So get your virtual tickets and tune into that. Will you be on that one?
Yes, I'll be on that one today.
Nice. Right on. All right. So let's talk about Judas.
Yes. Well, before we do, like, let's just talk about the way that all the different characters reacted to the Sermon on the Mount, because that was powerful, right? It's like the way
do you play that scene.
Yeah, we can do that.
It's not that long, right? It's only like
no, not at all.
All right, so we're gonna play a scene. So I am going to say goodbye to YouTube. So if you're watching on YouTube, please hit the like button and jump over to Rumble or X, Badlands Media. You can watch us there, and I will. I will say goodbye now. Love you, YouTube.